Hey everyone, welcome back. You know how I made that Mecha Limbo last month where you were literally invincible while nuking the map, and that you could freely exit Rift without ever getting hit, and also letting you use a typical primer plus melee setup even when the mecha set is in downtime? Well, we got another one of those broken, busted Limbo builds to showcase today. This one was actually shown to me by Cadaverous. He's been an avid viewer apparently, keeping tabs on our memes, and even popping in on our Twitch chat. Oh yeah, we got a Twitch now, so if you want to see how these memes are masterminded, the epic plays unfold, and most importantly, catch some new war news and its release, don't forget to hit that follow button. Anyways, Cadaverous saw my original Mecha Limbo video set up with a Distrezza and asked if I would like to see another interesting Limbo interaction. That's where we are today. With a couple custom tweaks for my own playstyle, this is what we got. I'll show you both his builds and mine today, so that we can get a better understanding of how to make the most of this dirty little secret. And there's a couple other tricks and variants we can do with it too. Now, some of you have seen this weapon pop up a few times on my channel already. Today, we're going to be completely breaking it. This is the Zymos. It has poopy crit stats and good status. Now, this weapon's reload is quite gross with low fire rate and a meh radial size on the AoE, but this weapon has a lot more in store than what the stats reveal. First, shooting the enemy of anything causes a delayed explosion that does insane damage on grouping setups. The other thing is that these secondary projectiles you see here, they double dip crit stats. So remember that 5% base crit? Yeah, that's not 5% base crit, man. Slotting just galvanized crosshairs and maxing the stacks will put your Zymos at 88.2 final crit chance. Arcane Avenger alone bumps you up to 95. And in the double dip calculation, mod crit and flat crit are multiplicative to each other, so you really want both. Look how high it gets with both crosshairs and Avenger. This is a simple little table to figure out the interactions between the possible crit mods and arcanes and what type of final crit you'll get out of it. A 5% crit pistol reaches 322% with only reds everywhere. It's a beast. Crit damage is also squared. So if you're adding Prime Target Cracker for a total 210% effective crit scaling, this is actually 210 squared on Zymos' 2.3 crit damage base. See, slotting Prime Target Cracker shows 4.83 in the arsenal, but in practice, it's actually 10.1, which is so much stronger. If you have Zymos ribbons, you definitely want to roll for crit chance and crit damage. It's insane on how hard this weapon crits. But that isn't the only secret on this weapon today. The other secret, which I haven't mentioned before, is that Galvanized Shot is busted on this weapon. The main shot, you see, when you shoot, scales with this mod properly, but it doesn't get the full effect. No, it actually even gets an extra effect. The mod is 143% times as effective as a normal galvanized CO, so you're actually getting a free final 43% extra total damage than what it's supposed to give. And that's not even all. The secondary projectiles, the ones where we get those big PP red crits, it only scales at 100% to the mod, but it has multiplicative scaling instead of additive, working like Eclipse instead of X armor. And if you didn't think the secondary shots were busted enough, think again. You can get damage into the millions on a single projectile hit with this weapon, and it has a base damage of 23. 23. And we still aren't done. You want to know one last thing? The main shot acts like a normal weapon. It cannot shoot across rift planes on Limbo, so if you're rifted, you cannot shoot unrifted enemies and vice versa. But this is where the law-abiding ends. See these secondary projectiles? Oh, they don't give a damn where they come from and where enemies are. So long as you can land a headshot with the main shot in the correct rift plane, the secondary projectiles will seek out and hit everything, regardless of rift status. It does not care. It does not matter if you're in rift or not, the secondary projectiles will still hit everyone else. So, what does this mean? Well, you should already know by now. You can hide in the rift and kill everything outside with impunity so long as you have something to shoot in our plane. And that's where stasis comes in. That's also where helmets come in. Remember the sprinkler of death beams on Nidus and XAKU? Well, this is the better version. So let's see what build culprits are responsible for this monstrosity today. This is the Zymos build. It's a very small tweak from the Zymos videos I uploaded in the past. It's built for full corrosive as expected, but we have dropped hemorrhage because the damage scaling is so high in the secondary projectiles you don't really need to slash procs from them. This is for base steel paths, but it should work pretty well for scaling too, although we have alternatives coming later on. We have obviously dropped Hornet Strike for Galvanized Shot for the reasons we explained earlier. I want to go over the weapon in Arcane quickly. Normally we would slot Deadhead to guarantee the enemy we shoot dies, much longer lasting stacks, and potential for massive headshot damage on the Seeking projectiles. But the Seeking projectiles are not guaranteed to hit heads. We also don't really need more damage. The main enemy we're shooting is actually going to be invincible, hence Sprinkler of Death, so this mutes a ton of the benefits Deadhead could provide. Instead, I'm gonna go for Secondary Merciless, since we have no problems killing enemies, and this really helps to cut down that 3.2 second reload. Technically, I could mod for gas instead, but I didn't really want to do that today. I imagine that could work well though, so feel free to try it out if you want. They would also get the double dipping crits and multiplicative galvanized shot scaling, so I expect the damage numbers to be monstrous, even though it has to eat past armor. You can also instead opt for Viral, which was the build that Cadaverous used, and use Hemorrhage instead of Lethal Torn as shown here. This will let that secondary projectile, which has forced impact on hit by the way, to scale off those crazy galvanized aptitude scalings all while you hide in the rift. But on this setup, we have replaced Hemorrhage with the Lethal Torn for some much needed fire rate on the weapon. You can also slot Anemic Agility here if you want, which is what I would opt for, but I couldn't fix it for that because of the polarity problems. More fire rate is always comfier, especially because this setup won't be using Arcane Velocity. The rest of the build has mostly been explained already. Any single secondary projectile that touches a head will kill the enemy near instantly due to the insane damage. That's why we're bringing Galvanized Crosshairs, because this shouldn't be too hard to upkeep. Crit damage is also for double dip squared scaling, as I mentioned earlier. Galvanized multi-shot as always, and the Prime Bane. Now, we don't really have a dot setup going on here, so it's only a 1.55 times final damage bonus. If you're using the gas or slash setup instead, this would be a 2.4 times multiplier on the dots. Alternatively, slot sharpened bullets if you're going a raw damage setup, as this is an 84% total damage increase on this build, so it is even stronger than the Prime Bane on Zymos for non-dot setups like this corrosive one. You would have to be ADSing to get the buff though. This will increase the crit damage multiplier to 18.7 times. And the Limbo build? Well, let's take a look at it. It is a tweaked Mecha Limbo build. This time we're going for max rank combat discipline. Why max rank? Because our helmet is Well of Life. This makes the enemy we shoot completely invincible and also produces lifesteal when you damage a target. It's only 1%, but that's all we need for Zymos and completely negates the health penalty from killing hordes with a max combat discipline present. The extra aura points also makes it much easier to mod. Since the target dies when the ability expires, we need to find a new one. And thus, it is best to run as high duration as possible, and we've opted for 282% on this setup, which extends the duration of Well of Life to 34 seconds. This is more than enough to just set up camp and kill everything that approaches for half a minute. This Cutting Drift here, I would recommend slotting Stretch. Instead, I have a polarity problem due to my other builds, but basically more range lets you cast Banish on enemies more easily without having to get all close outside of the rift. This reduces your chances of getting blown up, but there are other safeguards to protect you. This is just one of them. This brings the cast range of Banish back up to 17 meters instead of the tiny 12 ahead of you if you are at 34% range. Rift Surge will also be handy to pull enemies back into the rift after expires, so you don't always have to manually exit and risk getting shot. This is why some range would be nice on it. Strength is irrelevant since we aren't using it to buff Zymos' damage. Rolling Guard lets us exit the rift safely, granting us 3 seconds of invulnerability if it is off cooldown, meaning you now have 3 seconds to banish something, get back inside the rift, to set up the next 30 seconds of Zymos nuking in case the Rift Surge didn't trigger. Natural Talent speeds up the casting processes and makes the build feel better, as we do have free slots. Streamline for the efficiency bump since we aren't using Energize. No fleeting because that would wreck our duration when we want Well of Life to last as long as possible. Range isn't super important, really only for quality of life, so max narrow-minded for that duration, and then a small fix with Cutting Drift or Stretch, like I recommended, is more than enough. And finally, Prime Sure-Footed because knocks suck. Feel free to slot Handspring if you don't have it. For our Arcanes today, Arcane Avengers triggered by self-damage from combat discipline, even when you're hiding in the Rift plane. And I mentioned how important that is for Zymos due to the multiplicative scaling interaction between flat crit and mod crit for its double dipping. This is the part of the massive crit buffs we will be feeding into our Zymos, so it's needed if you want to see those juicy reds. And Pistolier? because all you need is the occasional headshot kill here or there, which will be more than enough to trigger this and give Zymos infinite ammo, meaning no more pesky reload for a while, though I would only recommend this for the gas or corrosive setup. On the slash, you won't be headshot killing on the dots, so it won't proc. Otherwise, it just works so well together and lets you focus on DPS during that 30 seconds duration instead of reloading. Just make sure you always have stasis active so you don't get shot by other enemies in the rift. We want total control of enemy rift state, so I've opted to subsume over Cataclysm. This also means you don't have to worry about nullifier bubbles, as Cataclysm is very finicky for higher range play like that. Vigorous Swap is just the token mod to get your Zymos off the floor before Aptitude or Merciless start stacking. Your pet follows you in and out of the rift, easily keeping it a safe. This is the standard Panzer build focusing on viral status spreading. You can't really hit the enemies outside of the rift with viral when using this loadout yourself, so your pet can cover that aspect instead. This results in a massive DPS increase if it procs. The viral coils is responsible for causing this spore spread, which shouldn't be too difficult with the spawn densities in Steel Path and it being an ability. Therefore, it means your pets can bypass the rift plane for proccing. Martyr for oh shit moments and keep you alive, Panzer for your cat's infinite lives, and Tech Assault to avoid lethal hits if for some reason that occurs. Synth set is very meh here, but I guess if you need the melee swing sometimes or using a melee primer, it can get you the ammo back on your Zymos faster than you can spend it in the magazine. The rest is stock link mods, radar, and vacuum. And that's it, the Limbo Zymos Nuke build. That's all I got to show you today and I hope you liked it. Take one more off for broken Limbo builds once again. If this is your first time watching, feel free to leave a like or better yet subscribe. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. 79.5% of you are not subscribed. I'm trying my best to get you new information out always as soon as possible, like I've done with covering Sisters of Parvos, Plaguestar, and now even new war updates. Stick around if you want to see interesting memes and builds on a nearly daily basis. I'm gonna be the first to get that info and content out when new war drops. You don't want to miss out on any of that, do you? That'll be it for this video. Thank you all for watching and see you all next time.